Hello friends, this is Casey at the Bodie's Homestead, and in today's video I'm bringing you an article, Wheat Supplies Are Shrinking and It's Bad News for Bread Prices. Crop losses in two of the world's biggest wheat exporters and quality concerns in a third have pushed prices to multi-year highs, raising concerns about the food price inflation for the millions of the world's most vulnerable. Has gone. In July, Canada's wheat continued to be roasted by drought and heat months after a severe winter affected the Russian crop. Those losses would only be partially offset by gains for a crop planted on more land globally than any other and used for basic foods such as bread, pasta, and breakfast cereals. Wheat prices rose this week as the U.S. Department of Agriculture slashed its forecast for Canadian and Russian production, leading a collapse in global reserves and trade. A smaller U.S. crop is also adding to the pressure. Its impact will be felt by households and governments alike, especially in poor countries dependent on imports. And in the U.S. and elsewhere, higher bread costs will be another pressure point for a food supply chain already battling labor shortages and logistical snarls. Consumers are going to see higher prices. There's no question about that, James Doyle, Executive Vice President of King Milling Company in Lowell, Michigan, said in an interview. Whatever the price we pay for wheat as futures increase, that gets translated into the price of flour exactly when a baker calls. Wheat's rally to a multi-year high has been also counter-seasonal, when grain silos in the northern hemisphere typically begin to bulge with fresh harvested supplies. The U.S. government forecasts that the global reserves could fall into a 5-year low, especially with supplies dwindling from exporters. The market is now looking at a global deficit, said Carlos Mera, head of the agricultural commodity market research at Rabobank in London. This raises concerns of food inflation. Wheat is an essential food staple. The Wheat Export Price Index, calculated by the London-based International Grains Council, is now up 46% this year. Separately, the United Nations Index of Global Agri-Commodity Prices is flirting with a decade high. As the prices for everything from French baguettes to Middle Eastern flatbreads to Asian noodles, wheat prices have a more direct impact on consumers than crops like corn and soybeans, which are mostly fed to animals. Commodity volatility can take time to enter the chain supply. Retail prices can also be sticky, and in some cases, food costs are subsidized by the government. But the higher costs now mean the grain could remain high until harvest pressures ease in the southern hemisphere in early 2022. Freight costs are also increasing to transport grain around the world. Overall, the blow looks particularly harsh for poor, import-dependent nations already reeling from the pandemic. The USDA this week lowered its 2021-22 wheat import forecast for the North African region, Southeast Asia, and Afghanistan. I'm afraid this is a situation in which I don't see any relief, said Abdolreza Abbasian, an economist at the Food and Agriculture Organization of United Nations. There are a number of factors that are unfortunately favoring the level of household inflation in many parts of the world. Russia has been the backbone of global wheat trade for the past few years, often being the single largest exporter. This year's shrinking crop coincides with the Russian government attempt to curb rising food prices on its own by taxing cargo bound for export. This allows buyers to turn to sellers such as the European Union and Ukraine. Paris milling wheat futures rose 9.5% in the week to their highest level since 2012. The EU's wheat harvest is bigger this year, 138.6 million tons versus 125.9 million, according to the USDA. But rains in France and Germany have disrupted the harvest. This damages quality parameters such as so-called specific weight, reducing the amount of flour in a certain amount of grain. If there will be availability, these types of criteria will now be discussed, said Philippe Houssili, General Secretary of the French Wheat Farmers Group AGPB, over the phone. Many countries keep a buffer of grain on hand to keep supplies from running low, as food shortages are often a harbinger of social instability. Buyers will eventually need to restock, and with prices going up, this comes at the expense of the importer's budget. Egypt's President recently urged higher prices for bread subsidized to its citizens, part of a push to reduce government spending. Meanwhile, a series of crop tenders from Turkey to Jordan have been canceled to procurement has been lowered than expected as importers face sticker shock. It's going to be a struggle, said Mira. Sooner or later, they have to come back to the market and pay the price. Okay, guys, so that's the article. So these types of shortages are happening all over the world, not just, obviously here in America. So that's something to be thinking about. Something that happens worldwide will definitely have an effect on the United States. So, we export and import like every other country. So it's just some food for thought. Keep that in mind. Wheat berries store absolutely beautifully, easily 40, 50 years in the right container. You could shop at Augustin Farms. That's the most affordable wheat berries I found next to Azure Standard. You could go online and see if they ship to your area. You can easily store these in 5-gallon buckets with or without a Mylar bag. They store either way. Um, so yeah, put some wheat berries back in your pantry and think about having a either handheld or electric grain mill so that you can mill your own flour. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye-bye.